Hey everyone, this is Ben Adams with the Pursuit of Progress. I hope everyone's having a great week. I'm here with my co host, Adam Lang. Adam, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Pursuit of Progress.
What is up, my man? Yeah, I'm excited to be here again, as always. Podcast number 24 today. We're getting close to 25. I think that's going to be a big accomplishment. We've talked about this on a previous episode, but very, very few podcasts get to 25 episodes. So
That's
I
right.
feel like our consistency is paying off, and we're almost there. So we'll have to celebrate here in another week or two once we're at that benchmark number 25. But yeah, dude, for today, I'm excited, man. This is something that I don't relate to quite as much just because I'm not a father myself. I'm
Mhm.
sure a lot of our listeners know, but for anybody that doesn't, I have a sister with special needs. So I have a similar dynamic where I feel like a parent at times, but nowhere
Mhm.
near the 24-hour a day, 7 day a week routine that you have as a single dad of two kids that are both now teenagers.
Man.
I know you're going through
Woo.
the ringer. Some days are great. Some days are pretty challenging. I know. I think you made comments recently about the teenagers might be some of the hardest you've faced today.
Yeah.
So
Especially those junior high years, man. I was not prepared initially. These junior high years and these teenage years, it was almost like a switch. As soon as they turned and became teenagers, OMG.
So we've had a lot of our listeners just reaching out and giving us positive feedback on segments of our various shows where Ben has shared some of his personal success stories, but also some of his challenges as a single father. Today we thought it would
Yeah.
be valuable to our audience that whether you're a single parent or you're just a co-parenting situation, or maybe you're somebody like myself, you're not a parent but you're just still kind of curious on what the dynamic is with adding parenting on top of all the other stuff that goes on in all of our lives. We're going to just kind of share three parenting tips
Mhm.
from Ben as a single father of two, and more specifically, how he's able to just parent and just this isn't a plug for Ben, but I've always really looked up to Ben on his commitment to his kids and just the amount of time, effort, and just dedication he puts into his family life. And I want to just specifically today talk about how he's able to juggle, you know, single dad, two kids, and he's got multiple successful businesses doing all of that as a single parent. So I think you guys can get a lot of value out of this one.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, man. And I really appreciate the warm introduction there with the glowing remarks. It's not easy. And I do want to give credit to my family. Also, my girlfriend is a incredible help. She makes meals for us multiple times a week. She's always over at the house helping out, cleaning. She does a lot of tutoring with the kids. And so even though I am a single parent, she's incredibly supportive. Also, my family as well. My brother has been an incredible emotional support person as I go through some of these ups and downs with the kids. And then some of the extended family here in Colorado has been very, very supportive. I lost my mom a couple years ago, back in 2021. She drowned in Mexico while on vacation, and that was really, really, incredibly life-changing, difficult for me because she was so involved in my kids' lives, and she was almost like a second parent, even though she was a grandparent, because she was that involved. And this first tip that I wanted to share was really something that she taught with me. Not necessarily when I was younger. She taught this to me as I became a parent and when she became a grandparent. Just the importance of spending individual, dedicated, one-on-one time each week with each child. And that is something that she really, just pounded into my head how important that is, and it really is life changing and breathes so much life into my relationship with my kids. So every week I have one on one time with my son. for at least an hour, usually several hours, and then also for my daughter. And that's on the calendar. It's scheduled. It's dedicated. Now, are there weeks where we miss it or it doesn't happen? Yes, but for the most part, it does happen. And sometimes we're doing something fun. We might go play putt putt. We might go race go karts. Other times we might just go to a Starbucks and read. The important thing is that we're spending time together alone where we can talk, where we can build our relationship, where we can check in. And I've noticed that the kids trust me more when we have those moments. And it really does help strengthen our relationship. I don't know that a lot of parents, I think some parents do this, but I don't know that every parent does this. And for me, it really is one of the most important things that I've learned and I have implemented as a parent is just to have that one-on-one time.
So what's your kind of time that you do this? Is it on the weekend? Is it after school, one day a week? Like what? Give us a little bit more
Yeah,
sub.
yeah. Typically, I'll have like my son, for example. We were meeting every Tuesday afternoon, kind of into the evening. So either around like 4 p.m. when he got home from school, or sometimes we would start at 6 p.m. His schedule changed a little bit, so we've pivoted that. But usually, like with my son, I'll do that on Tuesdays or Thursdays, and then my daughter with her scheduling, we will usually sit down and do something fun or go to Starbucks or do something Saturday morning. With my daughter, she has a tendency to our activities and our habits are a little more similar. And so we kind of just naturally get a lot more one on one time where it just comes naturally. She'll want to go for a run together. And on our runs or when we're exercising together, we get to spend a lot of time together. We get to chat. And so my time with her does come a little bit more natural. And with my son, some of his interests are a little bit different than mine. So I'm a little bit more intentional with him as far as really just making sure that our time is scheduled and when we have it on the calendar. And sometimes he doesn't want to go. A lot of times he doesn't want to go. And I just remind him, I'm not asking you if you want to go. We are going to spend time together and hang out. I know that you don't want to go, but after we get back to the house, I can tell that both of us are really, really glad that we had that time together.
Yeah, that's kind of why one of my follow up questions was just, I think it probably varies on the age of your kids, but as to junior high age, kids, I would imagine a lot of times you're getting pushback, and that's probably the
Mhm.
last thing that they want to do is, be around their parents. So
Yeah, spending time with dad doesn't always sound fun, but I do challenge my kids. But we also want to have fun though. We want to do things that are fun. I think when you're doing something that's fun or there's an activity, whether it's racing go-karts, playing ping pong, going to do putt putt, it's fun to interact socially when you have an activity that you can do at the same time. Sometimes we'll go down to Dave and Buster's or we'll go to the Golden Rec Center and we'll shoot hoops. A lot of times, though, we're doing things that are a little more active, sometimes seriously active, sometimes a little more leisurely active, but it's just a great way to kind of help the conversation flow a little bit, I would say, as well.
so do you have some intention behind you don't necessarily use this time to address maybe disciplinary type things, or if there's certain things you're concerned about with either of your kids, are you using this time for anything that might be considered negative in their eyes, or reprimanding in their eyes, or is this really always more on a focus of positive, upbeat, just enjoying each other's company?
Yeah, I want it to be very positive, upbeat, and getting them used to hanging out with me in a positive way where I don't want them thinking that I'm going to go spend 2 hours with dad and he's just going to, be critical of me and, rip me into shreds for the next 2 hours. That's not what I want. I want it to be fun. I want it to be positive, but we are going to talk about things at times that are serious. And we are going to like if I do have concerns about certain behaviors, it's like once we've got to go have our fun, it kind of gives me a platform to have a little more breathing room to voice those concerns and say, hey, you know what, I want to talk to you about this, or I've seen you hanging out with this person who's maybe a negative influence, like and just kind of remind them who they are, what path they're on. And it does help. I think them knowing that I care allows for them to also trust me more, even if I have demands and expectations. And I tell them that, I'm not I have things as a dad that I'm required to do, and I'm raising you a certain way. And we are going to be responsible, and we're going to be accountable, and we're going to have values, and we're going to do, you matter. Who you are matters. The things that you do matter. Your behaviors matter. And it's important that they understand that, because that's what I believe. And I am called as your father to help make sure that you're staying on your path. And sometimes we get to do the things that we want, but a lot of times we don't. It's about being, we have to do the things that are hard and learn how to stay disciplined so we can then do the things that we want.
Very well said. I like that. Well, let's get right into your second tip.
Yeah, my second tip was just being a parent first and understanding that I'm called to be a parent. I like to do fun things with my kids as well. I like to see them doing fun things. I always tell them, I want you to be able to do the things that you want to do, but we still are going to have expectations for this household. We're still going to have, um, certain standards that we're going to live up to. We're going to have, I have requirements for you. And so the reason I'm saying that is because I see so many parents out there that want to be friends first. And so, and that's one thing that I've learned, how important it is to, just understand who I am as a male and as a father figure, because there are so many kids that don't have fathers in the homes. And that's where a lot of, this kind of broken family and broken behavior can come from. So I understand that as a single parent, I am called, I have a very important ability with myself, who I am, and I have to embrace that, because if I don't embrace that, if I don't understand how important my role as a parent is, I'm not going to be able to lead my kids in the way that they need to be led. And so it's not always about doing what's fun or being liked. It's about doing what's important and necessary. And sometimes my kids will come home and they'll say, "My friends don't like you. They think you're mean." Or, "My friends, they used to like you used to be the favorite dad, and now like you're the least favorite dad." They'll say things like, and it stings a little bit, but I I don't let it get to me, because I know that they're behaving according to their age. They're 13 and 15 now, and that's how 13 and 15-year-olds behave. So I don't take it personal, but I tell them, I'm not trying. My goal is to not be well liked by your friends. Now, if they happen to like me, fantastic, but I don't stay up at night thinking if your friends like me or not. My goal is to raise two responsible kids who understand who they are, who are going to grow into the people, and give them the resources and the tools and the skills and the discipline that they need in life to be able to understand who they are, develop their passions, find their vision, go down their path, and do it with confidence.
Yeah, I know I've heard a lot of, successful athletes talk about their favorite coaches, and it's always the coaches that, were the mean, pushing them the hardest, non-negotiable, just like, this is how it is, very, kind of mean for lack of better words. But fast forward 10 years and those are the ones that they're giving the highest praise, the highest, you know, uh, their most gratitude for those types of coaches once they've
Yeah.
gotten to where they need to be. And so it's tough love, I guess, is another way to put it.
Yeah, it can be tough love, and I don't want my kids to think that I'm mean, and I'm like, I don't consider myself mean. When I ask them to do something, I always joke that I asked you nicely 5 times. It wasn't till I got upset that you actually did something. And so I've learned over the years to get better at controlling my emotions, my voice, my tone, my body language. That was also something that my mom taught me as well. She really believed in, nonviolent verbally, with body language, written language. And so those are skills that I have tried to honor her with and develop. But at the same time, though, don't, I've always told my kids that I will always love you unconditionally. I don't want you to feel like you have to go be the best at everything. I'm not going to, you know, there's so many kids, so many parents out there that they really focus on their kids' achievements. And I am not doing that with my kids. I tell them, I want you to be your best and do your best. And if you're doing your best and you're studying, for example, with school, if you are studying every day, if you're doing your homework, if you're putting your best effort forward every single day and you're a C student, that is okay. Or on the flip side, you might be someone who is getting straight A's, but you're not doing your best just because the classes are easy, or maybe you're just very skilled with your academics. And if you're getting straight A's, but you're not challenging yourself and you're not developing yourself, well, that's not okay either. So my focus has always been, what are we doing every day? What skills are we learning? Are we learning how to be committed? Are we learning how to be disciplined? Are we learning how to do things that we don't really want to do, like our homework, and sit down and make ourselves do those things? Or get up at 6 a.m. and go for a workout. As my son just started working out with us. There's been a lot of mornings where he hasn't wanted to get up, and sometimes I have to go in there and like literally carry him out of the bed and get him to the gym. But he's always glad afterwards, and he's learning how important that consistency is. Same thing with my daughter. She's really getting consistent with her running, but she doesn't always enjoy every single run, or she doesn't want to go run every single day. But it's learning how to control our mind to where we have control over our body, and we have the ability to do the things that we don't want to do, and we can do them at a high level even when we don't want to do them.
Like it's easier over time.
It does, yeah. And a lot of those things you can translate to so many different areas of your life once you learn them.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I agree. All right, well, let's close this out with the third and final tip, and then will you save the best for last? Let's hear this one.
Yeah. Well, this is one of my favorite quotes from Patrick Bet David, and he's a social media influencer who touches on business, family, just so many different topics. But he talks about his relationships with his kids, how there's three different phases. So this is what he says: first, your kids are going to idolize you as the parent. You can do no wrong. The second stage is they're going to demonize you, meaning that you can do no right. And the third stage is they're going to humanize you, and they're going to understand that you're not perfect, you have your flaws. And they're going to look at you from that lens. And the reason that's so important is because right now I'm going through a really difficult time. I'm going through those teenage years and the junior high years. Let me tell you, I was not prepared initially. And just as far as the attitudes, the disrespect at times, the back talk. And I was like, what happened to my kids? Literally, like within a week of them turning 13, I was like, where did they go? Like, what happened to these cute little kids? And the reason that's so important is to understand that that's normal. That's part of the human child. I'm sorry, the parent child relationship. And when you understand that's part of the relationship, you as the parent are going to be better prepared. So when the adversity does come, or when the back talk does come, or when they stop listening, or when they start giving you attitude, that's going to come, so you can be emotionally prepared for it. So the chances of you acting out or acting out of character is going to be less and less. And so for me, I can always hear my mom's voice, when I feel like I'm in a heated moment, just telling me to, calm down, stay in emotional control, stay consistent. When I do feel like I'm not being listened to, or I'm not being respected, and standing firm with what my values are and how I communicate. I'm not going to raise my voice. I'm still going to be consistent. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to be firm, even though I'm calm and I'm delivering my message a certain way. I'm still having my boundaries. I'm still going to hold you accountable. If you make a mistake, you are going to be held accountable to that. You are going to lose privileges, but doing it in a way to where me as the parent, I'm setting a strong example for them as children. And what's so interesting is when you become a parent, it gives you a totally different perspective from when you were a kid. And so I can look back now from when I was in junior high and say, holy cow, man, I gave my parents absolute hell as a junior hire, and it gives you a totally different
Mhm.
perspective. And, my parents weren't perfect. They made mistakes. I'm not perfect, and I've made mistakes. I want to make sure that I'm not passing down my parents' baggage to my kids. I want to deal with that right now. Every kid is going to have their version of trauma from their parents, but I need to make sure that the trauma they have is not the trauma that I have and that I was given to by my parents, so that doesn't get passed down generation after generation after generation. So I also just have to remind myself I'm doing the very best that I can. I'm showing up every single day. I'm having a good attitude. I will never stop showing up for my kids and for my family, you know, with their sports, with the things that are important to them, with my mentorship. I'm going to always be there. I'm going to always show up, but I am going to expect for things to not be perfect, and that is okay. I am going to expect adversity. Things are going to be challenging. There's our relationships are going to have ups and downs, and when you understand that, and when you understand that it's part of the journey, you can be thankful for the ups and the downs, because the downs are part of the story and they make the ups sweeter. I had a really up and down relationship with my mom over the years, and we had some really deep, dark valleys. But because we never gave up on each other, that made our mountaintops so much sweeter. The end result was just this beautiful relationship. And she is someone that never gave up. Even though she did make a lot of mistakes as a parent, she never gave up on me, and she never gave up on her. And so that's always my message too. I'm never going to give up on my kids, but I'm also never going to give up on me as a parent. I'm going to continue to show up. I'm going to continue to be my best, but I'm going to understand that there are going to be challenges, there is going to be adversity, and we are going to go through some valleys. So when they happen, I don't need to be bitter. I don't need to be upset. I can accept those. I can appreciate those and still be who I'm called to be.
Yeah, as you're saying all that, I'm just trying to think through in my childhood, just when I kind of progressed to each of those 3 phases. I
Yeah.
think the idolizing, obviously, that's kinda your maybe, 2 to 10, I don't know, but
Mhm.
more importantly, I'm just trying to think of, like, really when I went into that humanized 3rd phase.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that was maybe even probably after high school, even. I would think maybe even kind of in college, or, maybe even kind of entering into the real world. I'm not sure if I truly went into that 3rd phase until I was a young adult, or, maybe even an adult, I should say.
Yeah. I think that's probably right. For me, I think I started to humanize my parents probably like 23, 24.
Hmm.
And that demonized phase it typically starts around junior high when the hormones start to change, interests, activities start to change, and it can go, through your teens into the early 20s. And I know for me in particular, like I did not really come out of that until probably my mid 20s.
So, one last thing before we close this episode out. I know you're a really big reader. Are there any books that you've recently read, or just really any books that you have identified as just, being strong recommendations maybe for parents, not necessarily for single parents, but just good parenting books?
Yeah, I don't have any parenting books offhand that I've read here in the last 6 months, but I have read several books on communication, and that is, books on communication can be applied to so many different areas of life, and I feel like parenting is one, and also how to communicate to where your kids can really understand and appreciate. You want to be able to communicate that love and that affection and that concern, but you also want to be able to communicate, I'm here, I'm your parent, I love you, but I'm also your parent. And that's not easy. And my parents didn't know how to communicate that to me. And that wasn't really a skill that was passed down. So that's something that I've had to learn. And so learning how to be a really, really strong communicator in my mind is very, very important. And there's a lot of really powerful books out there on how to do that.
I agree. Awesome. Well, I think those were all 3 very valuable tips. Even as a non-parent, I got some value out of that as well. So thank you very much for being a little bit vulnerable there and sharing all those with
Yeah.
us. And that Patrick Bet David, I haven't really, I know who he is, obviously, and I've followed him just a little bit on social media, but he definitely is one of the probably most up and coming kind of social media. I hate that word, social media influencer. I don't like using that term, but I think he's a lot more
Mhm.
than that. He's a very successful businessman and entrepreneur too. But um, I'm definitely just motivated after hearing you talk a little bit more about him, just to get his book and also just kind of absorb a little bit more of some of the messages that he puts out.
Yeah, he has some great content, and YouTube, Instagram. Follow him, and he touches on so many different topics that I think are relevant, and I get value from. So that would be a great suggestion.
And we didn't really address, the educating your kids on financial literacy, any of that side of stuff. But I'll at least just kind of do a quick plug on that topic because that's something that Ben is very passionate about, but also just very, I think, one of his strengths is being able to communicate or just present some of that material to people that maybe don't have a literacy level of a mortgage broker or a banker, really
Mhm.
simplifying a lot of that down, even to the point of kids understanding it. So I know he's really passionate about spreading that, awareness and that education to his kids. But I know you've got a few videos on your YouTube channel about that. And I think you've talked about really having that be one of your lanes of focus for expanding a lot more into the future, maybe even create a book down the road. But if you guys have any just motivation or just interest in that topic specifically with your kids, definitely check out Ben's YouTube channel. It's just called American Money One. And
That's
if
right.
you just go to the channel and you click videos or playlists, you can kind of sort through all the videos and find a few there that I bet you'd get some really good motivation and just some ideas for talking points, maybe even if you're just doing a one-on-one, afternoon with one of your kids and something to talk to them about.
Yeah, we'll have to do another podcast on that because that's something that I am really passionate about. And also, there is a great need. And it's not just financial literacy, there's about five different topics, mental health, physical health, nutrition, financial health, and communication that we just talked about. So, these are the things that aren't being taught in school. These are life skills, though, that we all need to develop. So, let's do another podcast on those soon.
Cool. If you guys have any other specific questions on parenting, again, guys, drop a comment in our show notes or shoot either of us a message, and we can definitely either answer those one on one with you or include that in a future episode. So I think this was a great episode. Ben, thanks so much for sharing that with us today. And as always, you guys, please, if you haven't, hit that like and that subscribe button and given us a little bit of love on Spotify or Apple. We would really appreciate you doing that so we can
That's
help
right.
grow the show. And, I guarantee you've got a friend or two that also is a parent that maybe would get some value out of this. So just do us a favor and share the show. Help us spread the word and help us grow this so we can continue to expand our reach and hopefully affect positively more and more people with our goal for the entire purpose of why we created this Pursuit of Progress podcast.
Yeah.
All
All
right,
right,
guys.
everybody. Until next Friday, have a great week, and we will see you in a week.
Have a good one, guys.